What if one city could decide the fate of an entire nation? And what if every major revolution, every economic collapse, every political shift always led back to the same place? Caracas didn't just become Venezuela's capital, it became its command center. Hidden behind mountains, perfectly positioned away from the coast, this city was shaped to hold power, influence, and authority for centuries. Every empire, every leader, every moment of crisis passes through Caracas. From colonial settlements to revolutionary planning, from oil booms to modern-day chaos, Caracas has always been at the heart of Venezuela's story. But how did a quiet colonial town grow into the ultimate center of control? Why did this city, and not any other, hold the keys to the nation's future? In this video, we'll explore the complete history of Caracas City, its founding, its rise to power, the historical places that witnessed change, and the moments that turned it into the center of command. You'll see how geography, ambition, and history combined to create a city unlike any other, a city where the fate of Venezuela was decided again and again. If you want to understand Venezuela, the story always starts here. And what you'll discover might surprise you. Caracas was founded in 1567 by Spanish conquistador Diego de Losada, but at first, it was nothing more than a small colonial settlement tucked between mountains. The Spanish saw it as a strategic spot, isolated enough to defend, yet close to fertile lands and rivers that would support trade, agriculture, and future expansion. Life in early Caracas was far from easy. The land was rugged, the weather harsh, and indigenous resistance strong. Yet, the city's location, protected by the imposing Avila mountain range, gave it a natural advantage. Over time, Caracas developed slowly, its streets laid out in a traditional Spanish grid, its churches and plazas becoming the social and political center of the colony. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Caracas had begun to attract settlers, merchants, and religious institutions. The Plaza Mayor, now known as Plaza Bolívar, became the heart of civic life, a place where power, religion, and society intersected. Colonial houses with red-tiled roofs and stone walls lined the streets, many of which remain today as silent witnesses to the city's early struggles. Even in its infancy, Caracas held potential that no other city in Venezuela could match. Its geography created security, its climate allowed agriculture to flourish, and its rivers provided trade routes. These factors planted the seeds of power that would, centuries later, transform this small town into the command center of a nation. Historical records show that these early years were not just about survival, they were about shaping a city that could hold authority. Every plaza, every church, every colonial building laid the groundwork for future revolutions, governance, and societal control. Caracas may have started as a quiet outpost, but in these early decades, the blueprint for a city of influence was already emerging. What began as a tiny settlement between the mountains would eventually become the heart of Venezuela's political, economic, and social life, reshaped. By the late 18th century, Caracas had grown from a quiet colonial outpost into a city alive with ideas, ambitions, and unrest. Its streets buzzed with merchants, scholars, and thinkers who were beginning to question Spanish rule. Among them, one figure would rise to define the fate of not only Caracas but all of Venezuela: Simón Bolívar. Born in Caracas in 1783, Bolívar would become known as El Libertador, the liberator of Latin America. But Caracas itself was the stage. Its plazas, its colonial mansions, and its narrow streets were where revolutionary ideas took shape. The city was the hub of early conspiracies, secret meetings, and bold declarations that challenged centuries of colonial authority. It was here that Bolívar first witnessed the tensions between the ruling elite, the oppressed, and those who longed for independence. In 1810, Caracas became the epicenter of Venezuela's independence movement. The municipal council in the city boldly declared a break from Spain, and the first steps toward self-governance began. Yet this path was anything but smooth. Earthquakes, royalist uprisings, and political betrayals tested the resolve of Caracas citizens and its young leaders. Every decision, every battle, seemed to radiate from the city, influencing the wider region. The Plaza Bolívar was no longer just a civic center, it became a symbol of revolution, a place where citizens gathered to witness history being made. Bolívar's presence in Caracas, his speeches, and the movements he inspired turned the city into a beacon of independence across Latin America. Even as the wars raged, Caracas' geography and social structure allowed it to maintain influence. Mountains shielded the city from direct attacks, while rivers and trade routes allowed resources and information to flow. By the time Venezuela achieved formal independence in 1821, Caracas had solidified its role not just as a capital, but as the command center where revolutions were born, shaped, and directed. By the 20th century, Caracas was no longer just the heart of Venezuelan politics, it had become the center of unimaginable wealth. The discovery of oil in Venezuela transformed Caracas from a city of colonial streets and plazas into a thriving metropolis, commanding influence that reached far beyond its mountains. Skyscrapers began to pierce the skyline, luxury hotels and government buildings reshaped the cityscape, and Caracas became a hub where economic power and political authority intersected. The oil boom brought prosperity, but it also brought challenges. Migrants from across Venezuela flocked to the capital seeking opportunity, swelling the population and straining infrastructure. Streets that once echoed with the footsteps of colonial elites now bustled with cars, commerce, and protests. The city became a microcosm of the nation itself, a place where wealth and poverty existed side by side, where opportunity clashed with inequality. Historically important sites like El Capitolio, Pantheon Nacional, and the Casa Natal de Simón Bolívar stood as silent reminders of the city's roots, even as new modern buildings claimed the skyline. Government decisions, oil contracts, and political debates all flowed through Caracas, reinforcing its role as Venezuela's command center. No matter how far wealth or influence spread across the country, the ultimate control remained here. During this era, Caracas also became a center for political activism. Student movements, labor protests, and civic demonstrations all converged on the capital's plazas and avenues. The lessons of the revolutionary era lingered: control, influence, and public perception were still concentrated in Caracas. By the mid-20th century, Caracas had transformed into a city of contrasts, old colonial charm intertwined with modern wealth, poverty juxtaposed against luxury, stability constantly challenged by unrest. It was clear that Caracas had grown into more than a capital, it had become the central nervous system of Venezuela, where economic, political, and social power pulsed strongest. As oil flowed, so did influence, and Caracas remained the pivot around which the fate of a nation turned, a city whose history and geography ensured that control, whether by revolutionaries, presidents, or corporations, would always converge here. By the late 20th century, Caracas had grown into a bustling, modern capital, but beneath the surface, tension was building. Economic inequality, corruption, and political unrest created a volatile environment. Then came Hugo Chavez, whose rise to power in the late 1990s transformed Caracas, and Venezuela, in ways that would echo for decades. Chavez positioned Caracas at the center of his revolutionary vision. The city was no longer just a capital, it became a stage for political theater, protests, and demonstrations that would capture global attention. Plaza Bolívar, the historic heart of the city, became a gathering place for supporters and dissenters alike. Streets once lined with colonial buildings now pulsed with political slogans, rallies, and the constant tension of a nation divided. The Chavez era also brought a shift in how Caracas functioned as Venezuela's command center. Government control, economic decisions, and policy announcements all originated here, reinforcing the city's role as the epicenter of national influence. Infrastructure projects reshaped the skyline, while social programs and political campaigns transformed public spaces into symbols of power. But with power came unrest. Caracas became a city of contrasts, wealth and modern buildings juxtaposed against poverty, protests, and rising crime. Political instability, shortages, and international sanctions amplified the pressures concentrated in the capital. Every crisis, every major news story, seemed to flow through Caracas first, highlighting its unique role as the nerve center of Venezuela. In essence, the Chavez era cemented what history had already predicted: Caracas was not just a capital city. It was the command center where revolutions, reforms, and resistance collided. Understanding Caracas meant understanding the forces shaping Venezuela, from its colonial past to its modern political battles. The stage was set for the next chapter, a city tested by crisis, survival, and the resilience of its people, ready to confront challenges that would define the 21st century. Today, Caracas stands as a city of contrasts, its history etched into every street, plaza, and building. The skyline is a blend of colonial architecture, mid-century skyscrapers, and modern urban developments, reflecting centuries of change, struggle, and ambition. Yet, beneath its bustling streets, Caracas tells a story of resilience amid crisis. The city remains the heart of Venezuela's politics, economy, and culture. Government offices, media centers, and commercial hubs concentrate power, ensuring that decisions made here ripple across the entire nation. Caracas continues to influence everything from oil policy to social programs, making it a command center not just in name, but in function. At the same time, Caracas faces challenges that are inseparable from its history. Economic instability, shortages, protests, and crime test the city daily, reminding residents and visitors alike of the delicate balance between power and survival. Yet even amid turmoil, the spirit of Caracas endures, a city shaped by geography, history, and the determination of its people.